You know, after 43 years on this bench, I've witnessed every shade of family pain imaginable. The quiet betrayals that fester for decades, the explosive fights over money that tear blood ties apart, the moments when love turns into something unrecognizable. But on that rainy Thursday morning in March, a mother in her late 70s walked into my courtroom to sue her own daughter over an inheritance dispute that wasn't really about money at all. It was about a promise made on a deathbed, a lifetime of unspoken sacrifice, and a final act of forgiveness that, when it came, left the entire courtroom in absolute heavy silence. And me, a judge who prides herself on composure, breaking down in tears right there on the record. This wasn't a standard probate battle over assets or greed. This was a mother who had quietly given everything, her youth, her savings, her health, to raise a daughter who, in the end, chose to cut her out of the family home her late husband had left behind. The daughter claimed it was just business. The mother claimed it was betrayal of the deepest kind. And when the truth poured out, layer by layer, the verdict didn't just decide property, it decided whether love could survive being tested to its breaking point. Before I take you through every tear-stained moment of that morning, hit that subscribe button right now. Seriously, click it, because stories like this remind us that family wounds cut the deepest, but healing can still happen when truth is spoken aloud. And drop a comment telling me, have you ever felt betrayed by the person you gave everything for? You're going to need this one today. I've been a probate and family court judge in Seattle, Washington since 1982. That's 43 years of listening to people at their most vulnerable, most angry, most regretful. Every morning I rise at 5:45, make my tea, chamomile with a touch of honey, the way my grandmother taught me to calm the nerves before a long day, and drive through the mist thinking about the human beings waiting in my courtroom. My clerk, Laura, who's been my partner in this work for 25 years, can sense when a case is going to leave marks. That March morning, she met me at the door with quiet eyes. Judge, it's mother versus daughter, inheritance. The mother is 78, the daughter is 52, and the mother, she looks like she hasn't slept in weeks. The file told the surface story, Margaret Ellis versus Emily Carter, née Ellis. Margaret was contesting the will of her late husband, Harold, who had passed 8 months earlier. The 2010 will left the family home, a modest 3-bedroom in Ballard valued at $820,000, and most of the liquid assets to Emily, their only child. Margaret claimed Harold had made a subsequent oral promise, witnessed by neighbors, to change the will so the house would go to Margaret for life, with remainder to Emily only after Margaret's death. Emily had already listed the house for sale, intending to keep the proceeds and move Margaret to assisted living. Margaret was asking the court to enforce the oral promise and impose a constructive trust. The courtroom was unusually full: extended family, neighbors who'd known the couple for decades, a social worker from Adult Protective Services. At 9:40, Laura called it, "In re-estate of Harold Ellis, petition to enforce oral codicil and impose constructive trust, Margaret Ellis petitioner." Margaret rose slowly from the front row, small, frail, silver hair in a neat bun, wearing a pale blue cardigan that looked like it had been ironed with care. She used a walker but refused help crossing to the podium. When she looked up at me, her eyes were red-rimmed but steady, the eyes of someone who had decided this was her last stand. I began gently, "Mrs. Ellis, you're asking the court to set aside the 2010 will and enforce an alleged oral promise made by your husband shortly before his death. Can you tell us what happened?" She took a shaky breath. "Your Honor, Harold and I were married 54 years. He worked Boeing his whole life. I stayed home, raised Emily, kept the house, nursed him through 2 cancers. When the second one came back terminal, he was in hospice at home. One evening, February 14th last year, Valentine's Day, he called me to his bedside. Emily was there too. He took my hand and said, 'Maggie, the house is yours for as long as you live. After you're gone, it goes to Emily. I don't want you worrying about where you'll sleep when I'm not here.' He looked at Emily and said, 'Promise me you'll take care of your mother like she took care of us.' Emily nodded. She said, 'I promise, Dad.' 2 neighbors were in the room, the Millers from next door. They heard every word. Emily sat rigid at the defense table, arms crossed, jaw tight. Her attorney rose. 'Your Honor, this is hearsay. There is no writing, no formal codicil. The 2010 will is clear and unambiguous. Oral promises regarding real property are unenforceable under the statute of frauds. My client has already accepted an offer on the house.' Margaret's voice cracked. She promised him, on his deathbed, and 3 weeks after the funeral she told me to pack. Said assisted living was better for me, better for her bank account maybe. I turned to Emily. Ms. Carter, your response? She spoke evenly, almost rehearsed. Your Honor, I love my mother, but Dad's will is legal. He was on heavy morphine the last weeks. He wasn't competent to make changes. I've paid the mortgage, taxes, upkeep for years while Mom stayed home. The house sale will cover her care for life. I'm not heartless. I'm practical. Margaret shook her head slowly. Practical. That's what you call it. I gave up my nursing career to raise you. I sold my mother's jewelry to pay for your college. I sat up nights when you were sick, when Harold was sick. And now, practical means putting me in a home so you can cash out. The courtroom was silent except for the soft hum of the heater. I felt the familiar tightness in my chest. I've lost a spouse. I know what deathbed promises mean. Let me pause here, because this one hurts. Have you ever watched a parent beg their child not to forget them? Drop a comment right now and tell me what would you have said if you were Margaret standing there? And if you're already feeling the weight of this, hit that like button, because what Margaret said next changed the entire atmosphere of that courtroom. I asked Margaret, did your husband leave any written note, any recording? She reached into her purse and pulled out a small, worn notebook, Harold's handwriting, dated February 14th. He wrote this the next morning. To whom it may concern, I, Harold Ellis, sound mind, want Maggie to have the house for life. Emily promised to honor this. Signed, Harold. The Millers witnessed it. Emily's attorney objected. Hearsay, improper execution, no notary. But I admitted it as evidence of intent. Then I asked the key question. Mrs. Ellis, why are you fighting so hard for this? You could accept assisted living. Margaret looked straight at her daughter. Tears spilled over. Because the house isn't bricks and mortar. It's where we raised her, where Harold proposed to me in the kitchen, where we brought Emily home from the hospital, where he died holding my hand. If she sells it, it's like erasing him, erasing us. I'm not ready to be erased yet. Emily's face crumpled for the first time. She stared at the table, shoulders shaking. The gallery was crying, quiet, collective sobs. Laura handed me a tissue. I needed it too. I took a moment, wiped my eyes. Ms. Carter, did you make that promise to your father? Emily's voice was barely audible. Yes, I did. She looked up at her mother. I was scared. The medical bills. I thought selling was the only way. But I promised Dad. I broke it. Margaret reached across the podium, frail hand trembling, and touched Emily's arm. I don't want the money, baby. I want our home, and I want you to remember who we were. The room was so silent you could hear the rain against the windows. I felt tears sliding down my own cheeks, unprofessional, unstoppable. I didn't hide them. This court has seen many wills, but rarely one written with such love, and rarely broken with such regret. I cleared my throat. The statute of frauds is strict, but equity abhors a forfeiture. I find clear and convincing evidence of an oral agreement, partially performed, witnessed, and memorialized in writing. I impose a constructive trust. The house is held in trust for Margaret Ellis for life, with remainder to Emily Carter upon Margaret's death. No sale without Margaret's consent. Further, I order mediation between mother and daughter, not for the property, but for the relationship. 6 sessions paid by the estate, because a house can be saved, but a family lost is harder to recover. I didn't bang the gavel hard, just a soft tap. So ordered. Emily stood, walked around the table, and hugged her mother, tight, sobbing. Margaret held her like she was 5 years old again. The gallery applauded softly, not celebration, but release. Neighbors came forward, touching shoulders, offering quiet words. I sat there a moment longer, letting the tears fall, because sometimes justice isn't cold. It's warm, it's human, it's heartbreakingly right. 6 months later, Emily wrote me, Judge, we're living together in the house now. Mom's teaching me Dad's recipes. We cry a lot, but we talk more. Thank you for not letting us lose each other. Margaret sent a card. Your tears that day, they gave me permission to have mine. We're healing, slowly, but we're healing. Stories like this stay etched in your soul. Money divides, but promises, especially deathbed ones, can pull people back together if someone has the courage to enforce them with heart instead of hammer. If this reached into your chest, if you believe family deserves second chances even when trust is broken, hit that like button, subscribe for more courtroom moments that remind us what matters most, and share this with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to make it right. Comment below, have you kept or broken a promise to a dying parent? What happened? Thank you for listening. God bless. Justice isn't always about who gets the house. Sometimes it's about who gets to keep the home inside each other. Check the next video. Another family secret is about to unfold. Take care of your people. They're the only inheritance that truly lasts.